You probably all thought I paid my debt to society last year, but when the opportunity to host this crowdfunding panel came up, I absolutely couldn't resist. It's one of my favorite topics, and we have incredible talent in Portland around crowdfunding. Because I love a snappy aphorism, I came up with an expression, the 7 Ps of crowdfunding, that I hope you will take away with you and use as you plan or evaluate future crowdfunding campaigns. So the 7 Ps of crowdfunding, let me explain. My dad's name was Pete. Pete was a Navy man and a firm believer in the principle of continuous improvement. And Pete taught me, passed down to me, his formula for getting a job done and getting it done right the first time. Lauren, big man, deep voice. Lauren, he said, never forget the 7 Ps. Remember, he was a Navy man. 7 Ps, proper prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. Lauren, never forget the 7 Ps. Proper prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. Now, those 7 words could not be more applicable to running a crowdfunding campaign. No amount of preparation is too much, because once the ball drops and the 30-day clock starts ticking, there's really nothing you can do but react. But I realized I could go old Pete one better, and I came up with what I think is a better list of the 7 Ps of crowdfunding. And those are pitch, promise, PR, premiums, process, performance, and passion. That's a lot of Ps. Now, the guy from the NSF had 7 Ps as well. But my Ps or 7 letters, mine all run in a row. Pitch, promise, PR, premiums, process, performance, and passion. We're going to talk through those 7 elements now, and we will illustrate their impact with insights from these incredible crowdfunding veterans who have joined me on stage today. Starting in order from closest to me, this is Terry Starbucker St. Marie from Built, Oregon. Terry is when he isn't working with Mitch Dougherty and Rick Tirozzi on Built, Oregon, writes about leadership on his own site, terrystarbucker.com. Is also a business consultant and investor in the Oregon Angel Fund and the Social Venture Portland Fund. He is a board member at OEN, and he's a general man about town and about coffee bars, around espresso bars. The Built Oregon Kickstarter campaign launched in September of 2014 with a goal of $20,000, and in 40 days, they raised $32,000 from 318 backers. The video had more than 3,500 views and was a key element to the campaign's success. The funds were used to launch the magazine in December 2014, and with 12 Oregon entrepreneurial stories, as well as finance several more issues in 2015. Thank you, Terry, for joining the board today, joining the panel today.
Thanks, everybody. Great to be here.
Next, we have Ryan Grepper from Coolest Cooler, founder and chief creative officer of Coolest Cooler. Ryan has been a full-time inventor. Can you believe that's someone's job title? Full-time inventor, product developer and entrepreneur since 2006. He is relentlessly curious, optimistic, and always has an eye on making opportunity a reality. And he inspires others to develop their dreams through his online course, The Inventor's Blueprint. And I noticed today it was really nice that Chris from Growlerworks commented on how he had been inspired by Ryan's work in the crowdfunding community in his really successful crowdfunding campaign. So last August, as you may have heard, Coolest Cooler broke all previous funding records on Kickstarter, raising $13,285,226. Wow. And so 13 million is good, but this is what really gets me. 62,000 backers. And that was 26,000% of the target number that Coolest Cooler was trying to raise. Which boggles the mind. Today is still the 2nd most funded campaign ever, and the best, for sure. And as a tale of perseverance and resilience has captured the imagination of inventors and would-be entrepreneurs everywhere. And finally, at the end of the table, we have Matt Capozzi, founding partner of North Drinkware, who you will notice has the coolest glass on the table by a mile. This is the North Drinkware Oregon Pint, which has the profile of Mount Hood sort of baked into the, that's probably a really bad expression, but handcrafted into the bottom of the glass itself. It's a really beautiful product. Matt is founding partner of North Drinkware. He's a strategic creative leader with 20 years experience in brand strategy, marketing, product innovation, design, development, and production for the world's leading brands, and it all shows in this beautiful product. He builds and leads teams that work collaboratively, consistently exceed expectation, and have fun along the way. And their crowdfunding story is the Oregon Pint, handmade beer glass, covered this with a profile of Mount Hood in its base. They had their campaign in February 2015. They sought to raise $15,000 over a 32-day campaign and closed at 3,543% of their goal, funded by 5,620 backers. So they ended up with $531,000. So another great campaign, featured in over 40 publications, including the New York Times, Reddit, Outside Magazine, and the Oregonian. So another awesome campaign. So we're going to hear from these guys about the 7 Ps of their crowdfunding campaigns. So we'll start with the pitch. You guys ready? You look ready.
Yeah. Let's go.
Let's go. This is the whole package. This is the website, the video, the thing that you hit the go button on and hold your breath. It better be good because you are competing for eyeballs long before you start competing for money. And there are a lot of other worthy projects out there at the same time. It doesn't take into account competition for Reddit, BuzzFeed, whatever championship game is on that day. So your pitch has to be really powerful, and the most important component of the pitch, of course, is the video. That's what people really spend time on if they spend time on your campaign at all. And I thought that Built Oregon, I don't know how many people got to see, well, 3,500 people got to see the Built Oregon video, but it was very beautiful. It presented just an exquisite portrait of the state and of entrepreneurial spirit in the state and some company profiles that were really inspiring. So I wanted Terry to talk a little bit about how they came up with the process of presenting their pitch.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, I'm just happy to be here and happy to be a part of a panel that combined have raised $13.8 million. I'm really proud to be part of that.
You might move that back a little.
And before we get to Ryan, you know, the video we did was, as Lauren said, if anybody's going to go on that platform and try to raise funds, I think we knew from the get-go that putting together a video that told that story, that connected with the audience that we were trying to attract was really critical. But what I can tell you the key to it wasn't so much shooting it. Obviously, you need somebody talented to shoot it, and we were lucky. We had 4 Point Media. Technically, we shot that video in 2 weeks, which was incredible, and edited it and got it ready for viewing in 2 weeks. But what was really the most important thing to us was sitting down with our team and spending a lot of time talking about the story we wanted to tell. You know, what we wanted to do was say, what does the entrepreneurial ecosystem look like in Oregon? And what's our passion? What are we trying to communicate out there in launching a magazine like Built Oregon? And we sat around a table. I can remember these times, and Mitch can attest to this, where we storyboarded all the different little vignettes that you saw on that video for like hours and hours, and it took us probably, you know, the exponential difference between the time you spent preparing for it and the time you spent shooting it, it's probably 15, 20, 30 times. And I can't emphasize that enough.
So would you say then that proper prior preparation aided
you
in not having?
Yeah. I mean, I think you can't do this. You can't turn your video phone on and say, here's my cooler. Check it out. You didn't do it that way, right?
Not this time.
No, not that time. And Ryan probably learned some lessons, but I think you really have to get to the essence of the pitch, right? And as an investor myself, it's easy to say that, well, what's the problem you're trying to solve and how are you solving it? Well, we believe that we saw a need to tell these stories of Oregon entrepreneurs, and we wanted to put together a video that illustrated why this was important to us. And so the only way to do that, and I think this was amplified for us once we got into Oregon Storyboard, the incubator, and we learned, we really understood the power of story, is that you have to tell a story that can resonate with people, and then you have to find a good videographer to be able to document it and put it together. Yeah. And in essence, that were the keys to getting this done and getting it done well. And we were really proud of what we did.
And the video is still available. Of course, you can always look at
if you go to our if you go to www.builtoregon.com, where you can go there and, of course, become a Built Oregon supporter if you get a chance, because ours is a Kickstarter that never ends. You just go to our support page and you can pitch in, and then if you go to our About page, you can see the video. But we're really, really proud of it.
Yeah, check it out. It's beautiful. So the next of the 7 Ps is promise. Unlike other ventures, in a crowdfunding campaign, the learning about what it takes to deliver follows, rather than precedes, the promise to deliver. That's actually kind of crazy. Since you don't know what you don't know, how can you tell if your promise is grounded in real world if you have the ability to actually create and deliver the thing that people are going to pay you in advance for and hopefully speak really highly about their experience of doing that? Do you know the cost to manufacture, create, and deliver the goods? How quickly can you start production if you do raise enough money to actually begin? Can you handle storage and shipment of the goods? Can you scale your process if, as we all hope, your campaign blows up? So I think that Matt and I talked about how North Drinkware imagined what their process was going to look like before they even started to make these glasses. So if you can talk about how you crafted the promise that you were going to make in your campaign.
Yeah, it's a big, it was a big part of our planning in the earliest stages of our campaign was talking about small, medium, and large scale plans. The small plan was, we'll just make a couple hundred glasses, we'll pack them out of the basement, and it'll be pretty mellow. And that was pretty close to what our ask was, which we realized in the first 5 hours was not going to be the plan. After we launched on Kickstarter. And so we had conversations, though, early on in the process on what would happen if it gets to be bigger, way bigger, gigantically bigger than we could have thought, so that we had plans in place and we had a strategy in place before we hit go on the campaign on what would happen. Now, the plans ended up being bigger than our biggest thoughts, but at least we had already been down the path of how to accomplish that. So we spent a lot of time talking and in partnership with our manufacturing partners about what small, medium, and large and extra large looks like really early in the process. We had packaging suppliers lined up that could, again, before the campaign started, from a small, medium, large, and extra large standpoint. And we also, one of the things that we did early on was we met with third-party logistics groups, a number of them in town, about different services that they offer, how they could help warehouse our inventory, help pick, pack, and ship our inventory, should it get to a scale that was bigger than we could handle out of my basement. So I think being aware that what you're doing on Kickstarter is kickstarting a business, and so you've got a business plan that you're going after, and that the scale of business, potentially, if it exceeds your goal, could be a 3 to 5 year growth plan that you would anticipate on a platform other than Kickstarter. That with Kickstarter, you get all of that money within 30 days, and so you go from a 0 to in our case, it was kind of a year 5 projection. If we were just selling not on Kickstarter, is what we hit in the 30 days. So.
And so it sounds like you had to invest at least a lot of time in preparation for manufacturing, for logistics, before you even knew what kind of volume you might be ending up with.
Just to be confident that you can deliver on the promise.
Yeah, it's a big investment. So the next P is press, PR, press and social. When you see the amount of press that a hot Kickstarter campaign generates, it's really easy to think that if you build it, they will come. But in reality, the process of preloading press has to start months before the campaign launches. And I know that Ryan had an early experience with Kickstarter and a later experience with Kickstarter, and that your PR activities in the middle were really a significant part of the story in between. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. I guess the first thing I would say to that is that Kevin Costner is a liar. It does not work that way. What I found to be the most effective way to get press for a Kickstarter campaign, especially the one that we had this last summer, was to first fail in an earlier Kickstarter campaign and find out what doesn't work. Now, it's not what I would suggest that everyone does. There's a lot to learn, but we tried to launch the first Coolest Cooler earlier. This was November 2013, for about a month, and it was an earlier prototype. And in that time, the thought was, if we explore enough options for getting PR, and if we can find enough avenues, we will get the press that we need. And I think every Kickstarter founder launches with this secret hope, if not, maybe not even so secret, but this expectation you're going to launch it, you love it, someone's going to find out about it, it's going to get chosen, and that's going to be your golden ticket. Now you have to prepare for your other alternatives, and that's what we did that first campaign. We tried looking back, what I now feel are the most ridiculous strategies, but, and in the end, they weren't effective. What we didn't do that first campaign, aside from trying to launch a cooler in November, was, there was more than one thing we learned from the failure of that first campaign, but from the PR standpoint, we just didn't do enough. We didn't have a big enough list of supporters when we launched that first campaign. Aside from our outreach that was mildly to low success on that first round, we didn't have a list. So we spent a lot of our 30 days wasting that time trying to get attention. And so when that closed and the decision was made, we had our passionate backers who we didn't quite hit, we didn't get our funding goal, but they still believed in the product. So it was back to the basics, improve the prototype, launch in the summer, and then build the biggest list of backers we could. And that was the big part of our launch, was on email, really building and collecting the biggest email list that we could, so we could have this potential energy that we could drop in on day one that would have a ripple effect. And then the rest of our PR strategy, I think it's important. If there was one way to manage PR for Kickstarter, everyone would do it. And so your niche, there's going to be a certain way to reach them. Maybe it's on Facebook, maybe it's Twitter, maybe it's YouTube. Those are three that I recommend that your campaign should explore, along with some selective blog outreach, and critically building an email list months and months in advance that you can leverage and drop on that day one. And then anything else that you think might be a fit, pursue it.
Yeah, I think that when we think about PR, we think first about reaching out to bloggers, reaching out to USA Today because they ought to feature your product, but really getting that email list is the point of the arrow, and those guys come behind.
You can't control if you're going to be picked up. What you can control is getting someone's email address. And you can reach out with hopes and planning, and you can strategize, you can network, but not everyone has the same networking capabilities and skills, and it's very intimidating for a lot of people. If you have an email list, you can leverage your email list, and you can have requests, and you can, with dead certainty, you can reach out to them at this time on this day, and you can ask something from them, and if you've built a relationship before that day, you have some expectation of an action.
So if you can figure out a way to do this without failing first, by all means, do. Yeah. Neil's giving me the high sign here, so I know these guys could talk about this all day, but we're going to move fast through the four more of these significant 7 Ps of crowdfunding. Premiums. Premiums is a funny thing because they're expensive and you haven't raised any money yet, but you still have to go out and buy the keychains and the t-shirts, and they are not necessarily very compelling to your audience. So I really loved what North Drinkware did with their premiums. It was kind of a layered approach, physically and commercially, and so I thought you'd talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, Matt. For sure. Well, our whole proposition is making handmade glasses made here in Oregon to consume handmade beer and beverages in. And so we wanted to make sure that all of our perks sort of lined up with that, the sort of strategy of the brand. So of course we wanted to offer the glasses. One of the unique things that we were able to do that Kickstarter doesn't always love is offering multiples of the same product for different levels of perk. So we had to get early sign-off from Kickstarter on that. And I think it's unique to this type of product where you're often getting sets or multiples. So that was sort of an obvious tiering for us with our perks. And then we worked with Schwood, who is a local wood and eyewear supplier that made some coasters that we designed. So again, the coasters tie into the same proposition, also made here in Portland, also tying to the same theme and idea. And then our highest tier perk that we offered was actually allowing people to come blow glass and make their own glasses, which is also right here in Portland. So really we wanted to make sure that all of the premiums that we were offering were on brand for us and stayed on message of supporting the core proposition, which is the glasses themselves, even down to the $5 entry virtual cheers that we offered people to get into the mix.
So a lot of craft went into preparing even the premiums for the campaign.
Yeah, just and really just trying to stay on message with the proposition of what North is about and in all of the tiers.
Great. So the next of the 7 Ps is process, and we're actually covering that a lot in this conversation, so I'm going to skip over that, but I just have a little story to tell about process. What is it like after you hit the go button? What do those 30 days really feel like? I read about a company that rigged an air horn. This is an early Kickstarter project. Rigged an air horn to sound every time they received a pledge. Can you imagine a worse price to pay for each incremental success? I think they cut that off after the while. The guys have some great stories about what their process was like, and I hope that maybe you can catch up with them at the break and learn about that. But I don't want to skip talking about performance. And this is when you actually have to go out and deliver the 26,000% of the goods that you initially expected to be putting in the market. And I hope that Ryan could talk about that a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, I sure will. No, when you launch your campaign, you get into it with the best of expectations. You're hoping that you will succeed, but both Terry and Matt have touched on the preparation, the planning that needs to go into your plan B, your hopeful plan B if you're very successful. I don't think there are enough letters in the alphabet to capture where we ended up compared to our initial A plan, especially after that first failed launch. So we're so grateful, and I'm so grateful to all of our backers who supported us. And really, from the day that we crossed the finish line, which was day 2 in the campaign, and passing the goal, the rest of the campaign and the rest of this year has been focused on over-delivering to our backers and being involved. Because when you back a crowdfunding project, you're not buying a product. Yes, you know, we would love to have the product earlier, but as a backer,
you keep a hand on that,
yeah.
Matt.
Where's that cooler?
As a backer, you get to be involved in the process of bringing it along. And so because you can't make 62,000 coolers overnight, the next best thing is to share the process with the backers so that one, they don't think that you're on a yacht in the Maldives someplace, and two, that when they get their coolest, they have they're a better brand ambassador than any other possible way you could ever have a brand ambassador. If you're getting them on early, it's a product they're already excited about, they love the product, they love the idea of it, you're engaging, you're as transparent in the process for bringing this product to market as you can, and we've tried to do that at Coolest when we had to, unfortunately, tell people that we were not going to make our February ship date. That was a challenge, but rather than shy away from it, I think there's a reasonable expectation to share. You know, when we launched it with this expectation of 50,000 and we said we delivered in February, things have changed a bit with that much volume increase. So we launched a site on our at Coolest/Countdown that we built that gives people both a snapshot of where we are from where we launched to when we'll be shipping, which is in July when our production turns on, what we've accomplished so far and what still has to be done. That's for the people who just want a snapshot to see progress, kind of that progress bar loading concept. As long as it's moving, you know something's happening. Then the next part down is a commitment to do a weekly production-based blog. Most of our backers, 90%, well over 90%, are not reading the production updates. But the 10% who really care about the details of this, if you don't give them this information, if you don't share it, they're going to be your most vocal opponents, and they're going to ask you why you're not sharing these details. So that's been really helpful to have a place to direct the detailed conversation, and then also kind of a more general Kickstarter messages that's, you know, this is more general information. If you want more specifics, here's a link to this week's production update. So, you know, the process, I think it helps. My perspective has been to look at this year and this process of launching and delivering the cooler, not about, you know, this 13 million from these coolers, but what can Coolest as a brand be? What can the experience of our backers be as future brand ambassadors? And what can we do next if we over-deliver out the gate? How much easier will the next anything we want to do be? So that's been the process.
So a lot of your performance has actually been communication and communicating your ongoing passion for the project,
yeah.
even after the $13 million is in your bank in the Maldives. So.
That's right.
I have your account number, so I'm all set.
There's no extradition treaty there, so.
So passion, that brings us to the final P, which is passion, which is communicating why these people who come and click on your Kickstarter link should not just have an interest in you, should not just make a donation to your cause or your campaign, should not just sort of pre-order whatever the product is that you're coming out with. It's why they should have faith in you. And in my experience, it's communicating your passion around the product and the project that accomplishes that. And so I want Terry to quickly tell us the high story of how Built Oregon communicated its passion. Yeah, quickly is what you got in the front.
Quickly? I think what we did was all about passion. It was about a passion for Oregon entrepreneurship. And I guess it was self-referential in a way, right? Because we were using an entrepreneurial platform, Kickstarter, to push an entrepreneurial project, Built Oregon, which was about telling entrepreneurial stories. So it couldn't get any more self-referential than that. But I think what our passion was is that we really thought that there were more stories to tell here in this state about entrepreneurs that weren't being told. It was that simple. And we wanted to put that passion not only on that page, but on that video, and hope upon hope that once we put it up there and hit the send button, and I so can relate to what Ryan was saying when you did, that you really hoped that other people would do it too, or would buy off on that too, or join that community too. But what I would strongly suggest to anybody that would consider doing this is that you really have to put that passion for whatever you're doing, whatever you're producing or going to produce or promising to produce, you have to find a way to get that passion on that page somehow about who you are and why you're doing this, and tell your story. Because in the end, it's all about that story. Why you're doing it, why you're trying to solve that problem, and why it should be you. Why it should be you. And if you can do that, you're going to make it. And the only thing I want to add to this is that Kickstarter, to me, is the 30-yard line to this thing. And I just want to emphasize what Ryan said. If you haven't built your community somewhat before you launched it, you're never going to happen. Think about that. It really is more like the 30-yard line. It's not like starting from the goal line. You really got to get some momentum before you do it.
So get your passion on the page. I love that. I'm going to add it to the 7 Ps. We're going to have the 8 Ps. Thank you guys so much. Congratulations on your fantastic campaign. Thank you for joining today. Thank you.